This next chapter is called Ode Mombi, Indulges in Witchcraft. We left off. They were in great danger, and then they just kind of stopped to talk to a bug for a while. A giant bug. Then we kind of lost the plot, I think. But before that, Tip was worried about Mombi, turning him into a statue, I think. And, oh yeah, there was this giant army of women with needles about to take on the Empire, which was poorly run by the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman. They soon discovered that the Sawhorse limped, for his new leg was a trifle too long. The smallest of their worries, I would say. So they were obliged to halt while the Tin Woodman chopped it down with his axe, after which the wooden steed paced along more comfortably. But the Sawhorse was not entirely satisfied even yet. I was just about to comment too about how quickly they had solved this problem again, but at least there's more plot here. "Nay, it was a shame that I broke my other leg," it growled. "On the contrary," airily remarked the Wobblebug, who was walking alongside, "you should consider the accident most fortunate, for a horse is never much of use until he has been broken." What? That's some bad advice even for this book. "I beg your pardon?" said Tip, rather provoked, for he felt a warm interest in both the Sawhorse and his man Jack. "Permit me to say that your joke is a poor one? As old as it is poor?" "Well, still, it's a joke," declared the Wobblebug firmly. "And a joke derived from a play upon words is considered among educated people to be eminently proper." I'll be honest, I don't get the joke. Also, making fun of people isn't necessarily something educated people do, except for me on this podcast. "What does that mean?" inquired the Pumpkinhead stupidly. The actual words of the book. It means, my dear friend," explained the Wobblebug, "that our language contains many words which have a double meaning, and to pronounce a joke that allows both meanings of a certain word proves that the joker is a person of culture and refinement, who has, moreover, a thorough command of the language." "I don't believe that," said Tip plainly. "Anybody can make a pun." "Not so," rejoined the Wobblebug stiffly. "It requires education of a high order. Are you educated, young sir?" "Not especially," admitted Tip. Then you cannot judge in the matter. I myself am thoroughly educated, and I say that puns display genius. For example, if I were to ride upon this Sawhorse, he would not only be an animal, he would become an equipage. For he would be then a horse and buggy. Now I kind of agree with Elfringbaum's critique here. And what he's trying to say, he's critiquing a lot of people these days. They don't trust experts and think that their grasp of a subject is just as good as people who have studied and have advanced degrees. Now, I know what you're thinking, of course. Well, how can you say that you are a literary critic when you don't have no degree? Well, a pish-posh. Let's move on. At this, the Scarecrow gave a gasp. "Oh?" And the Tin Woodman stopped short and looked reproachfully at the Wobblebug. At the same time, the Sawhorse snorted his derision. and even the Pumpkinhead put up his hand to hide the smile which, because it was carved upon his face, he could not change to a frown. But the Wobblebug strutted along as if he had made some brilliant remark, and the Scarecrow was obliged to say, "I have heard, my friend, that a person can become over-educated." That's not the problem here, buddy. None of you are over-educated. "And although I have a high respect for brains, no matter how they be arranged or classified, I suspect that yours are slightly tangled. In any event, I must beg you to refrain from your superior education while in our society." "We are not very particular," added the Tin Woodman, "and we are exceedingly kind-hearted, but if your superior culture gets leaky again—" He did not complete the sentence, but he twirled his gleaming axe so carelessly that the Wobblebug looked frightened and shrank away to a safe distance. Whew. Now we're getting heated within our own company. The others marched on in silence, and the highly magnified one, after a period of deep thought, said in a humble voice, "I will endeavor to That's not what he said. "I will endeavor to restrain myself." "That is all we can expect," returned the Scarecrow pleasantly. And thus, good nature being happily restored to the party, they continued on their way. When they again stopped to allow Tip to rest, the boy being the only one that seemed to tire, the Tin Woodman noticed many small round holes in a grassy meadow. "This must be the village of the field mice," he said. Oh, the Tin Woodman noticed. "This must be the village of the field mice," he said to the Scarecrow. "I wonder if my old friend, the Queen of the Mice, is in this neighborhood." I'll just interject here. I went to New York near Christmas time, and my two goals were to see a rat and Tina Fey. And I did see the rat in Central Park, a very excellent rat. I have a photo if you're interested. "If she is, she may be of great service to us," answered the Scarecrow, who was impressed by a sudden thought. "See if you can call her my dear Nick." Oh, I forgot about the Nick thing. Again. So the Tin Woodman blew a shrill note upon a silver whistle that hung around his neck, and presently a tiny gray mouse popped from a nearby hole and advanced fearlessly toward them. For the Tin Woodman had once saved her life, and the Queen of the Field Mice knew he was to be trusted. "A good day, Your Majesty," said Nick, politely, addressing the mouse. "I trust that you are enjoying a good health."
"Well, thank you. I am quite well,"
answered the Queen demurely, as she sat up and displayed the tiny golden crown above her head.
"Can I do anything to assist my old friends?"
"You can indeed," replied the Scarecrow eagerly. "Let me, I entreat you, take a dozen of your subjects with me to the Emerald City."
"Will they be injured in any way?"
asked the Queen doubtfully. "I think not. I will carry them hidden in my straw, which stuffs my body, and when I give them the signal by unbuttoning my jacket, they only have to rush out and scamper home again as fast as they can. By doing this, they will assist me to regain my throne, which the army of revolt has taken from me." What do we think about his plan? He's just trying to scare them with mice? The whole army? With 12 mice? And a giant bug? To each their own.
"In that case,"
said the Queen,
"I will not refuse your request. Whenever you are ready, I will call 12 of my most intelligent subjects."
No. Don't take the intelligent ones with you and put them in any danger. There's no need for the intelligent ones to be along on this journey. "I am ready now," returned the Scarecrow. Then he lay flat upon the ground and unbuttoned his jacket, displaying the massive straw with which he was stuffed. The Queen uttered a little piping call, and in the distance, a dozen pretty field mice. They're pretty and smart. No, keep them at home. Anyway, they had emerged from their holes and stood before their ruler, awaiting her orders. What the queen said to them, none of the travelers could understand, for it was in the mouse language, which I imagine is like
Squeakity squeaks. Squeak, squeak.
Now, why the mice speak a different language and the bugs speak English is beyond me. But hey, multilingual. That's good. But the field mice obeyed without hesitation, running one after the other to the scarecrow and hiding themselves in the straw of his breast. When all of the 12 mice had thus concealed themselves, the scarecrow buttoned his jacket securely and then arose and thanked the queen for her kindness. "Oh, one more thing that you might do to serve us," suggested the Tin Woodman, is to run ahead and show us the way to the Emerald City. For some enemy is evidently preventing us from reaching it.
I will do that gladly,
returned the queen.
Are you ready?
The Tin Woodman looked at Tip.
I'm rested.
That didn't answer the question, said the boy.
Oh, let us start.
Then they resumed their journey, the little gray queen of the field mice swiftly running ahead, and then pausing until the travelers drew near, when again she would dart away. Without this unerring guide, the Scarecrow and his comrades might never have gained the Emerald City, for there were many obstacles thrown in their way by the magical arts of old Mombi. Yet none of these obstacles really existed. All were cleverly contrived deceptions. For when they came to the banks of a rushing river that threatened to bar their way, the little queen kept steadily on, passing through the seeming flood in safety, and the travelers followed her without encountering a single drop of water. Again, a high wall of granite towered high above their heads and opposed their advance. But the gray field mouse walked straight through it, and the others did the same, the wall melting into mist as they passed. Again, we solved the problem before we reached it. Bad writing. Afterwards, when they had stopped for a moment to allow Tip to rest, they saw 40 roads branching off from their feet in 40 different directions, and soon these 40 roads began whirling around like a mighty wheel, first in one direction and then in the other, completely bewildering their vision. But the queen called for them to follow her and darted off in a straight line, and when they had gone a few paces, the whirling pathways vanished and were seen no more. I read, I don't think I mentioned this before, I read that there have been several attempts to make a television show based on the Wizard of Oz books. Not the Lizard of Oz, which was their mistake, and one thing they kept saying was that these shows were often criticized for not having much conflict before it was resolved. So it's very hard to make a show. It's a feat that really can only be performed by, well, the Wonderful Lizard podcast. Mombi's last trick was the most fearful of all. She sent a sheet of crackling flame rushing over the meadow to consume them, and for the first time, the Scarecrow became afraid. The first time? What's he been doing the rest of the time? The Scarecrow became afraid and turned to fly. "If that fire reaches me, I will be gone in no time," he said, trembling until his straw rattled. "It's the most dangerous thing I've ever encountered." That's true. He was afraid of a match. And finally we're paying off on that foreshadowing. "I'm off too," cried the sawhorse, turning and prancing with agitation. Prancing with agitation. I like that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to do that sometime. "For my wood is so dry it would burn like kindlings." "Is fire dangerous to pumpkins?" asked Jack fearfully. "No, we put fire in them every Halloween." "You'll be baked like a tart, and so will I," answered the Wobblebug, getting down on all fours so he could run faster. Oh, so he could run the faster. Excuse me. But the Tin Woodman, having no fear of fire, averted the stampede by a few sensible words. "A look at the field mouse," he shouted. "The fire does not burn her in the least. In fact, it is no fire at all, but only a deception." Indeed, to watch the little queen march calmly through the advancing flames restored courage to every other member of the party, and they followed her without even being scorched. So they could have done this all without the mouse. Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed the 3 seconds of rip-roaring adventure. Oh, this is surely a most extraordinary adventure. A rip-roaring adventure. If I may put words into the mouth of the Wobblebug, Wobblebug, who was greatly amazed, for it upsets all the natural laws I heard Professor Know-It-All teach in the schoolhouse. Of course it does, said the Scarecrow, wisely. All magic is unnatural, and that is the reason it is to be feared and avoided. But I see before us the gates of the Emerald City, so I imagine we have now overcome all the magical obstacles that seemed to oppose us. Indeed, the walls of the city were plainly visible, and the Queen of the Field Mice, who had guided them so faithfully, came near to bid them goodbye.
We are very grateful.
Nope. We are very grateful to your majesty for your kind assistance, said the Tin Woodman, bowing before the pretty creature.
I am always pleased to be of service to my friends,
answered the Queen, and in a flash she had darted away upon her journey home.